This is my top 5 baseball moments video, counting back from 5 to 1, pretty much moments growing up as a kid. Me and my dad would go to baseball games, and I was just thinking back through the years to try to come up with a good video. So here's my list of 5 baseball moments. Number 5, back in June 14th, 2004. Grew up around Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, so I was a big Phillies fan. My dad took me to a Monday night Phillies game versus the Reds, and the big hype of the night was Jim Thome, who had 399 home runs, and everyone was like, when is he going to hit his 400th? So took our seats behind home plate that night. First inning, of course, Jim Thome comes up. We're like, man, I think he's going to hit it. So we're watching the at bat. It was a long at bat. I think he worked the count full. I had my phone out. I was thinking, this is going to be the one. He fouls off 2 pitches after the count's full. My dad's like, this is it. Take the phone out, take the phone out. So I took it out. Of course, next pitch, smack, hits his 400th home run, dead center field. Everyone's going crazy. Definitely one of the top 5 moments for me as a kid. Couldn't believe I watched that live, and definitely, personally, I couldn't be happier to be there at that game that night. Number 4, I'd have to say, growing up as a kid in the 90s, just like everybody else, huge Ken Griffey Jr. fan. So when I was 9 years old, my dad took me to the Baltimore Orioles Camden Yards Stadium for the first time to see Ken Griffey Jr. play. I was super pumped. That's the ticket right there underneath the signed baseball. We got to the park early, tried to get signatures from if Griffey came out. We never did, but that night it was, of course, a gorgeous night to play baseball. I was super pumped to see Griffey play, hoping like, oh yeah, he's gonna hit a home run or do something fun. He went 0 for 3 that day, I think, and he walked. He actually hit into a double play ball. I was super bummed that he didn't do anything at the plate. But I think Ripken that day, he was like 2 for 4, 2 RBIs, and the Orioles ended up winning that game. Still super cool to see Griffey play. I went, actually, it was another time as a kid. My dad took me to Yankee Stadium, and we watched him there. I forget how he did that day, but still a great moment for me. That was number 4. Number 3, my dad took me back to Camden Yards 4 years later to see Ripken play, and it was versus the Yankees, which is his favorite team. That night, it was just Saturday night, day game, or Saturday night, not night. And we took our seats. Orioles jumped out to an early, like 5-run lead. We're sitting there all game long. Yankees aren't scoring. Yankees are scoring. My dad's getting mad. He's like, "Come on, they got to beat these Orioles." But ninth inning came around. Bernie led off with a double, and Tino comes up, hits a home run. They're back in the ball game, 5-2. Next player, Chili Davis, hits another home run. It's like 5-3. Everyone's going. All the Yankee fans in the stadium were going nuts. But then the Orioles, of course, yanked the closer, Arthur Rhodes, took some of the momentum out, and Yankees never could get those last 2 runs to put in extras. But that game was like sort of a interesting game because it was September 19th, 1998. It was the second to last home game for the Orioles that night. We didn't really think much of it. Left the game next day, or we're following the games, and all of a sudden Cal decides he's not gonna play that day. So I actually saw the last game that Cal Ripken Jr. played in his 2,632 game streak, not even knowing it until the next day when he decided he was gonna sit himself. So that was pretty cool. That was a number 3 moment. Number 2 moment was because we grew up in Philly. My dad had some season tickets to the Phillies, and if you're a Phillies fan and hadn't seen tickets, you could enter into the All-Star game to win tickets. So we won tickets to see the Home Run Derby and the All-Star game. So I was lucky enough to get to go with my dad that year. It was at Veterans Stadium, like before they went to Citizens Bank Park. Really cool to be there. Some highlights of that game, it was Ozzie Smith's final All-Star game. He's 15-time All-Star. I remember whenever he took the field, he did his signature like backflip. I thought it was awesome as a kid. It was Alex Rodriguez's first All-Star game. My favorite player, Griffey, actually, he hurt himself the month before when he fouled a pitch off his hand, so he wasn't able to be at the game or anything. I was super bummed I wouldn't be able to see him again, especially in an All-Star game. But even that, it was still a cool game. National League won, I think 6-0. And quick trivia fact: that was the last time the NL beat the AL for 14 more years. And then my number one baseball moment, my dad took me to see World Series game whenever the Phillies played the Blue Jays in 1993. It was Game 5. Phillies, of course, were losing in the series. There's a lot of big offensive series. We have in the background, I got my pictures of Dykstra and Dalton and Kruk and all those great Phillies that year that made the team really fun to watch. That night, actually, Curt Schilling was pitching versus I think it's Juan Guzman of the Blue Jays, and so they actually had a pitching duel in pretty much the only game of that entire series that was pretty much dominated by pitchers. Curt, I think, he pitched a complete game shutout that night, only let up 5 hits. The Phillies scored 2 early runs, and pretty much that was the whole game in a nutshell. Obviously, the Blue Jays went on to win the World Series next Game 6 when Joe Carter hit his home run off Mitch Williams. But the game I saw turned out to be the last game ever played in Vet Stadium. And that was one of, I'd say, has to be a highlight, just going to see a World Series game. So there's my top 5 baseball moments. Hope everyone enjoyed it. And keep bringing your kids to the baseball games so they can have cool moments like this growing up. Bye.